Hey, welcome to another episode. I am really excited to be able to have a conversation with my friend Lori Barkus. She is the owner of Sustainable Family Solutions and works primarily in Colorado and Florida and is a fellow advocate and really just wanting to empower, particularly women, as they're going through the process. So, Lori, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely, Rhonda. It is always a pleasure to get to speak to you, and I am so excited to be here, and I cannot wait to talk about our topic today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we were kind of figuring, I know there's a lot of different directions we could have gone with our conversation. And I know every single time you and I talk, I always walk away with a bit of inspiration and just a feeling that we're in this together, right? We're there aligned to be able to help women navigate through. And so, what we talked about sharing today is a little bit around mediation. And I know I've done several podcasts on mediation, but what we want to talk about today is the misunderstandings around mediation. And so before we kind of kick off with the kind of three key points that we want the women that are listening to leave with, kind of give us a summary of kind of your thoughts around mediation, just kind of at a really high level, and then we'll dial down a little bit and unpack that.
Okay, absolutely. One of my favorite topics, because I was a certified mediator in Florida for a lot of years. Mediation at a high level means that you have one neutral person who may be an attorney, but is not acting as an attorney for either of you. The role of this person is to help you get to an agreement, not to give you legal advice, not to resolve disputes, not to say who's right or wrong or what is fair or unfair, but to help you get to a middle ground resolution of the issues in your divorce, including anything involving the parenting of your children.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot packed in there, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, mediation, at least from my experience, and you can share with me a little bit about yours as well, but you and I have been doing this for quite some time. And I would say over the last probably few years, we've seen more of a focus on having an amicable divorce. We've seen more of a focus on people wanting to do mediation. And then I'm sure you get these calls too. I'm talking to women that are in the midst of mediation and they say, Rhonda, I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm being steamrolled. I'm frustrated with the process. I don't know what's next. This is not at all what I thought it was going to be like. And so let's pick it up from there because I know you probably have gotten those calls too.
An awful lot, because what happens is a lot of times people say, oh, go to mediation. It's the greatest thing ever. It's so much cheaper. It's so much easier. You're going to save money and all of your problems are going to be solved. And that's only partially true some of the time. And what I mean by that is it's so much better not to have a dragged out divorce. And we can talk about that later at another time. But at the same time, mediation doesn't solve everything. And the situation you described is very common. I see that, unfortunately. Sometimes two people come to the table and really want to work together. They have a child or children. They don't want to hate each other. They want to come to an agreement. It's straightforward, or even it isn't financially, but they really want to be fair with each other. Some other times you have somebody who feels like they want to get something over on the other person. They may not think of it that way, but they know they're going to get a better deal if they bring the spouse to mediation and tell the spouse, this is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to be. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to give you this. And there isn't enough information. It doesn't line up with the information. A lot of times this person did get legal advice and knows that they would be responsible for more and have to pay more. And they're just trying to get themselves a better deal than what the court system would provide. And that's where the steamrolling happens.
Yeah.
And that's something that we'd like to see people not do. Mediation is supposed to be a level playing field. You are not supposed to feel like, I feel like somebody's running over me. I feel like I'm forced to do this. I feel like I have to agree to what is being said here, even though I don't know if it's right for me. All of those things are red flags.
As you were saying that last portion of that statement, I got goosebumps, right? Because I think there's nothing that really frustrates me more. And it's, part of the reason that I get up every single morning is exactly that. I I could not agree more. Mediation is supposed to be a level playing field. And one of the things that I think is also important that I know that I have shared as part of my bridge program when we're talking about kind of building your team and identifying which direction you want to go is we look at the different options and we say, okay, what are the pros of this situation for your situation? What are the cons or concerns that you have related to that? And kind of the subset to that, or my commentary after that, is listen, you have to be brutally honest with yourself if you think this is going to be a good option. Meaning, if you have not gotten along and there has not been transparency and there's been control and manipulation over the last 20 years, the thought that all of a sudden now you're going through divorce, which is going to be the most challenging thing most likely you've been through in a long time, if ever, that suddenly now everybody's going to get along and sing kumbaya and everything's going to be transparent and open, it's just very unlikely. And I think women want to come to the table and say, but I want to believe that that's going to be the case, Rana. And Lori, right? I want to believe that we could have. And I'm like, listen, if you can be honest with yourself, if there is this base level of respect, if there is a base level of transparency, if there's a base level of, at least some trust, right? Even though you may have be coming to the end of your road together, those are the candidates that I have seen that mediation is a great fit for. But I think people are feeling pushed, manipulated, bullied into doing mediation when really maybe it wasn't a good fit from the beginning.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And it's something that motivates me too, because there's an injustice of it. And I always have a red flag sense when somebody tells me my spouse, particularly my husband, is saying, don't talk to a lawyer. Don't talk to a lawyer. We're going to go to mediation. It's going to be perfectly fair, but you cannot talk to a lawyer. Again, that's trust and transparency. I always tell people that talking to a lawyer, getting educated, having advice is a good thing. You want the right fit for you, which is a different conversation. But again, it's not like you can't ever talk to lawyers. You can't get the information you need. The way it's going to work and the way that you're going to be able to co-parent long-term and come through this and be the best versions of yourself for your children is that you all are transparent. Not that one of you feels like, well, I have to do this. I have to be nice. I don't want to upset him or her. I can't stand up for myself. If any of that is present, then mediation, and by the way, we're talking about pro se mediation, meaning the two of you without lawyers go into mediation, then it's probably not right for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think those are all the things that people need to be thinking about or considering. Because again, for people to want the best outcome and for people to go into it and want there to be this level of, amicability and respect is not wrong. It's just that I think we need to have our eyes wide open to say, you know what, I actually don't know if this is the best fit for us. Right? Because to your point, right, the mediators are committed to the process. They have a very specific kind of protocol that they have that they are committed to. And it really can be challenging if that's not what people are anticipating or expecting, going into it. So I know we've talked a little bit about kind of the role of the mediator in this pro se sense, where it's a neutral third party, typically an attorney and things like that. And we've talked a little bit about, who mediation, pro se mediation might not be for, but in addition to kind of that advocacy component versus, being steamrolled, what are some other characteristics that as women are listening and they're maybe considering mediation that they might want to be thinking about, just in that identification of, is this really the best fit for me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic question. One of the things is, can I sit across the table from my soon to be ex and advocate for myself? And again, that's not fighting. Nobody's saying being aggressive, but can I speak up when I think that something should be different or it should be more, or there's something we should be doing, or do I need somebody to do that for me? That's a really big one. And the second one would be, do I have enough information? I've had mediations where there's a definite alimony or maintenance component, and the person doesn't know what they need. And you've got two willing people who really want to negotiate, really want to figure this out, but that, preparation is key. And we're going to talk about that too, I know, but you really have to, you can't go there just thinking the mediator is going to figure it all out. You've got to be able to speak for yourself, and you've got to be prepared to know what you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to kind of piggyback off that, one of the things that I think is important as well is the amount of kind of work behind the scenes that the two individuals will be required to do. And I think, as I've had conversations with them, listen, yeah, maybe you've handled the day-to-day finances and you've got a good handle on some of that stuff, or maybe you're the one who, is taking care of all of the financials. You know, some of that, all of that, right, might fall on you to gather, organize. And I think sometimes people are like, well, he should be, involved and he should be gathering documents. And sometimes I'm like, listen, it's a means to an end. Somebody can take the lead, gather, organize, or you work together if that works. But there is homework typically that the two individuals need to do outside of those mediation sessions that's going to require conversation.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes people don't realize, like, oh, that's right, I'm gonna have to talk to, like, there's going to be regular interactions as you're, working together if you decide to go down the mediation path with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And from a document standpoint, and also a parenting standpoint, a lot of times there in an ideal setting, there's actually a bit of trial and error in parenting plans. And it's one of the beautiful things about mediation that the court doesn't allow you, but you guys may have an idea of how it's going to work. And then the logistics come in, and you've got to be able to say, okay, well, there's this practice on Thursdays, or there's something on Tuesdays, or on these weekends. How are we going to handle that? How are we going to navigate? And it's a really good trial run for being the best co-parents that you can. So again, the mediator's not gonna fix the logistics. And the more you all can look at that and even say, well, I had this idea of how it's going to work, but you know what? That's probably not going to work for our family as a unit. So let's see what we can change up. That's really going to benefit you long term too, because I always told people my goal is not just to help you get to an agreement. It's to help you get to an agreement. You're trying to stay out of court. I want to keep you out of court. I don't want you to have an agreement that's too vague or it doesn't work for you, and then you end up having to go back to court later on. So
Yeah.
that's not a good thing either.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's the other part too that is really important as people are looking at the divorce process as a whole, no matter what pathway they decide, is working with a team that has that vision to look beyond just that final agreement. Because I know, like, when I'm looking at the financials, that I can see down the road, like, this could be a problem. Let's identify this. Right. And it is, the details matter in those types of situations. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think as people are interviewing mediators or attorneys, that could be one of the things that they're asking is, hey, what has been, what is your focus, right? Are you looking at just that document? Do you have, experience in kind of looking forward, and I wouldn't say forecasting per se, but it's just this, how do we manage the risk after this document is signed and their current party is no longer, right, part of the team, right? Because the process is now over. Is that document clear enough to stand on its own without creating more issues?
Oh, yes. I've seen that a lot where people reach an agreement. Either they've done it themselves, or they went to mediation and they didn't have a lawyer look at it. Because it's great that y'all reached an agreement, but it may not say what you think, and it may not have that detail. And then everybody signed off and they realized, oh, wait, we forgot this, or we forgot that, or we didn't think about when we were going to sell the house. We just said we would do it later. Or, I mean, that one comes up so
It's a
much.
big
And
one.
yeah, it's a really huge one. And yeah, those are the what ifs that you really want to think about. And with kids, and how are we doing extracurriculars, and what happens on the first day of school, and are we going to deal with college? Because in most states, the court is out of the picture when your kids graduate high school. So can you put that in place, and can you be detailed enough? Because we will pay for college is not detailed enough. Your very smart child may get into Harvard but not have a
Yeah.
scholarship. Can you deal with that? You really got to dive in. You've got to be focused on details, not just getting through the process.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I think that's absolutely spot on. And, that's the kind of stuff that, again, people, the more that we can prepare people ahead of time for those kinds of things and questions to be asking, we're setting them up for success, and as minimal issues post-divorce as possible, which I think is really awesome. I know that you had mentioned, a couple things that that's helpful for people, as they're going through the mediation process. And one was kind of this confidence or ability to be able to speak up, in the meeting, feeling like they have the safety, right? That they feel safe to be able to do that. But then also the information on knowing what questions to be asking and how to even navigate through the options that are being presented. And I think that kind of leads us to this next spot, which was, okay, we've talked about maybe some of the challenges. And again, let's be very clear. You and I both like mediation. It's just a matter of making sure that it's the right fit
Yeah,
for the right people.
absolutely. We want to set you up for success. And that's the goal. We're not trying to talk people out of mediation or away from it, but you have to understand what the process is. And I think there is a lack of understanding out there. That's why
I
I'm really
agree.
glad we're talking about this.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And so when we look at kind of the alternatives, or, how could people that say, what, I really want to do mediation, how could they be prepared? Because I think ultimately there is a level in which they can dial in support. I always like to look at things as a dial or a continuum, like, okay, are you, a little less support, a little more support? How are we going to dial this in? So let's talk a little bit about that on ways that we have seen, people to be able to have the support they need to be successful.
Okay, absolutely. Great topic. One thing people don't realize is that you can hire lawyers for specific things. And a lot of times I've seen people in mediation say, well, if we hire lawyers, that's it, it's over, we're going to go to court. That's not how it works. Not always. And it also depending on who you hire. But one of the things you can do is get support around mediation. You can consult with an attorney before you go to mediation. And I always recommend that you have agreements reviewed before you sign them. But you can also get a form of ongoing support. I mean, we have a mediation support package where we basically customize that you do have a very robust intake, so we can go over everything, understand, really get you prepared for mediation so that you understand it, help you so that when you walk in there, you know what to expect. We help you understand how to speak for yourself, what to speak about, what you're looking for, flushing that out. And of course, Rhonda, working with you and your team is invaluable when there are financial questions and there's business valuation or there's questions about income, because you don't want to guess. You don't want to guess at assets or mix something up or not understand, or just say another common one, oh, that's his pension. I didn't work for that entity and I'll just let that go. That can't be a lot of money. That might be a very lot of money. So, these are the kind of things that you can get support around and get your questions answered either before or during or on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And here's the other part of it too, is that, there might be people thinking, well, we agreed, meaning, me and my soon to be ex-spouse, right, agreed that we weren't going to hire attorneys. And I think here's the other thing is that, and I know this is a little unsettling for people, and that is there's certain things that as you're, uncoupling, unraveling this relationship and this marriage, that there's going to be some things you're going to have to keep close to the vest. There's going to be some things that, and I'm not saying advocating for not being transparent on the financials. I'm just saying as part of the strategy, there are some things that you're probably not going to want to share. And one of which could be, hey, I've got a team behind the scenes. I know that, like, there's a lot of times I'm a silent partner. I'm not showing up to the mediations. You could be a silent partner. We're working together to advocate, to help women show up and look like the rock stars, look like the smart, articulate, confident women that they are in the mediation. And we just happen to have the privilege and opportunity to be behind the scenes. And so I think that's where sometimes, as I've talked to women too, they get caught up on, like, well, I told them that I wouldn't hire an attorney. Well, yeah, you're not hiring a full on, like, retained attorney, but you can get counsel.
Yes. And
right?
and you should, both
And you
parties
should.
should. Right. Because again, the goal is fairness. It's not, I'm going to hire this team behind the scenes to do something bad. It's about getting to a fair agreement and a comprehensive one. And I absolutely agree, that I would be aware of those promises a little bit, because when somebody tries to lock you in and say, well, you promised that you would never talk to an attorney and you have to hold to that, that to me is a red flag, because I can understand the fear that people don't want an attorney to get involved and make the process worse. What I would say to that is hire the right attorney. But if
Yeah.
your spouse is adamant that you're not allowed to talk to somebody, there's a control issue there, and maybe there's something that's being hidden. I don't want to go, don't know the specifics, but that is a huge red flag for me. And trying to force a promise when you don't have enough information to go through what should be a voluntary process is not a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as you were talking, Lori, I just thought of a question. At the end of the day, right, if we look at mediation and the goal is to level the playing field,
Yes.
I think the question that women could be asking themselves is, what do I need? What support, what knowledge, what I would also say, what wisdom, because I think there's a lot of info, right? We need wisdom. What wisdom do you need to level the playing field? And I think if we can ask ourselves that question, we now say, you know what? I need to be empowered to level the playing field. It never is, hey, and I know you and I can speak from experience. We're not coming in and saying, oh, take him out at the knees, take him for what
Right.
he's worth, take him to the, in fact, right, quite the opposite, right? But we also don't want our clients to be steamrolled. And so we've got to be able to level that. So if we can be part of that team behind the scenes to simply level the playing field,
Yep. Yep.
I mean, that is awesome.
It is. And I love what you said about wisdom. Oh, I so do, because it's so true. And again, it's not just, hey, let's take everything, which wouldn't be fair. It's about finding what's fair for you. We want you to have the knowledge. And I sometimes prepare people for mediation and we say, okay, well, this is what a court would probably do. But here's some ranges. We're here to settle. We're here to compromise. Maybe give up this because you don't really need it and argue for that. Or here's a different way to do it. And so it's not ever about getting everything. I think people have a really bad opinion of attorneys, and some of it is certainly justified, but people think that if they talk to an attorney, somebody's going to say, you must fight for every single dime you should get. I wouldn't do that. Rhonda wouldn't do that. We want you to know, we want you to have knowledge, and we want you to come to the place that's fair so that you're okay after this process.
Yeah.
And you can be the best version of yourself for you, for your kids, for everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, absolutely. And, and I think, as we continue to move forward, right? I mean, I think one of the things that the stat, right, that certainly is part of our mission is the fact that women, typically their lifestyle goes down 45, 41, 45, somewhere in that range, right, percent after the divorce is over. And I think the reason for that is for a lot of the reasons that we talked about. They settle too soon. They're feeling pressured into making decisions. There isn't full transparency, on the financials, and they agree to, something that's less than what they should get. And then they spend years, decades, multiple decades trying to recover and sometimes never do.
Exactly. Yes. That is a big part of it. I mean, sometimes everybody's lifestyle is decreasing, and that's the reality. Now you have two households, but when one person is decreasing disproportionately, that means that something unfair happened, especially in a long marriage.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So first of all, I will say thank you for taking time. I know you are
My
busy as well,
pleasure.
so I appreciate it. I love your energy. And I'm sure now the
Likewise.
listeners know why when we started the conversation, I'm like, every time we leave, I feel inspired. Because you just have such great energy. And I'm so grateful that our listeners could sense that during the short time that we have been chatting. But as we wrap up our time together, two things. One is, how can people connect with you? And the second thing is, what words of kind of wisdom or encouragement would you like to leave with our listeners?
Hmm. Love that question. Remember, whatever you're going through, you're not alone, because there are resources out there. Divorce can feel very overwhelming and also very isolating. And feeling isolated is one of the scariest feelings. But we hear you, we see you, and we can help you find resources if you're in that boat. As far as connecting with me, my website is sustainablefamilysolutions.com. We have some great free resources on there. Encourage you to take advantage of those. We do have a Facebook page. We do have a newsletter. Those are our most active. And we do have a YouTube channel where I do quite a few videos talking about different things, from avoiding divorce mistakes to how to hire a lawyer and what to do and what not to do, and really trying to delve into those topics that I know everybody has questions about. And Rhonda, again, this has been an absolute pleasure. I love your energy too. I love the collaboration, and I always welcome the opportunity to talk with you and work with you in any way that I can, because it's always a fabulous experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I know that our listeners have been greatly encouraged by our time together. And until next time, thank you to everybody who's been listening to the Divorce Conversations for Women podcast.
Thank you.